Hey, did you know John Dillon is the attorney on the Miller versus Bonta case and Jones versus Bonta case? In other words, he's working to remove the assault weapon ban and working to restore the Second Amendment right for 18 to 21-year-olds. So if you have legal matters that involve firearms, then you need to call attorney John Dillon. If you have questions about red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, or maybe you just need to know that your guns are California compliant, you can trust our firearms attorney, John Dillon. That's John Dillon, specializes in California gun laws. Call him at 760-642-7150, 760-642-7150, or you can go to his website at DillonLawGP.com. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing well, especially after an introduction like that.
Well, it's the truth, and you know it. So tell us some good news.
Well, today I got something a little bit different. I'm not going to be doing an update on any cases, but I wanted to talk about a subject that I think is a little too often overlooked, especially when you're dealing with and talking to a bunch of law-abiding citizens and law-abiding gun owners. This is an area where we tend not to pay attention to because we don't think it really applies to us. But what I'm talking about is the concept that you are never, ever, 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 ever supposed to talk to the police. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but it is never beneficial to talk to the police. Now, I say this for one reason. I'm not talking about if something's happened and you need to get police to come and help you, and you're the one that called the police, and there are certain things you do need to talk to them about. I'm not talking about your brother-in-law who's a police officer. You can still talk to him. What I'm talking about is if you're ever involved in anything from an infraction, a speeding ticket, up through any type of criminal investigation, it is never beneficial to talk to the police. And all too often, I find that people call my office and they'll have some criminal trouble. They'll be involved in some criminal matter. And very quickly, I'll discover that, in almost 100% of the time that I get these phone calls, it could have been entirely avoided or at least extremely mitigated if the person that calls me just kept their mouth shut and didn't try to explain themselves away. And it's something that is natural as a person who feels like they're innocent, they've done nothing wrong. You want to explain yourself if police come knocking on your door and asking you questions or asking, can we search your house? Can we search your car? You got nothing to hide because you're a good person. You haven't broken the law. But I know Mike's heard me say this a number of times, but I always tell people, you give me 10 minutes and you let me walk through your house, I guarantee you I can find something illegal. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. If you let me walk through your house, I'll find something illegal. So if I can do it, you better believe a police officer can do it.
But, John, if you tell the police officer, I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk to you, can't he arrest you?
Yeah, no, that's not something that happens. They actually have to either have witnessed a crime or, have to have probable cause or search warrant or an arrest warrant to arrest you. If they're just asking questions, that's what they're doing. They're fishing. They're trying to get more information. And again, too often people think, well, this is just a misunderstanding. I'll just explain everything. He knows I'm not a criminal. And you start explaining the situation, and now you've admitted to, breaking the law. It's just the simplest explanation is you get pulled over for speeding, right? So you're on the side of the road, police officer walks up to you. Do you know why I pulled you over? I'm sorry, officer, I was speeding. Well, now you just admitted to the crime.
Gotcha.
And that's it. You're trying to be cooperative, but in fact, you're just giving the state evidence. Now, we got to remember that Fifth Amendment right. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. So remaining silent is not a criminal thing. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean, you're an incooperative, horrible, criminal. It just means you know your rights and you're exercising them. Now, you can do this in a very civil way. You don't have to be combative or, cause a big scene. But you just be civil and explicit. If the police officer asked to search your residence, no, officer, you can't search the residence. You can't search any of my belongings or personal property or real property. You'll have to get a warrant for that. If you're being stopped and questioned, you can ask, hey, am I being detained? If they say no, then you don't say another word, and you walk away, and that's it. If they say yes, well, then you let them know politely, well, I'm going to invoke my right to remain silent, and I'm also going to invoke my right to an attorney. I want an attorney present before any questioning proceeds. And then you just don't say anything from that point on. If it is, in fact, a misunderstanding, let a lawyer take care of that. Let the lawyer talk to the DA or the police officer. The reality is police are trained to get people to talk. And that's the best way to get evidence of the crime, is to start having that person talk about it.
Hey, John, a quick question for you. And I know I've talked to you about this before, and I think it's important to go over it again because we get this in class from time to time. But in your scenario a few minutes ago, when you say, okay, if you're pulled over by a policeman, so you pull over, and like in my case, I drive an F-150, so if I've got guns with me, they're in a range bag or in a gun case or something, and they're sitting in the back seat. What's the rules on, can the officer look in there? Can they search anything? How does that work?
Well, yeah, so, if something's in plain view and the officer believes that, has any reasonable suspicion something in plain view could be illegal, then you may have a search on your hands. But I always recommend, especially if you're driving around, is to have all your firearms in locked hard cases and then not visible. And if you have a trunk, put them in the trunk. If you have a bed of a truck, get a giant bag that can fit everything, something that's inconspicuous that doesn't scream, hey, there's a rifle or a handgun in this bag or lockbox. That's the best way to kind of avoid that. But again, even in a situation like that, are there firearms in there? I'm not going to answer any questions, officer. And that's all you have to say. You don't have to say a single word.
Right, and can they open it, or can they ask you to, or not ask you, because if you don't give them permission, can they open it up? Can they search it? And I thought the rule was if it was related to whatever they pulled you over for. If they pulled you over for a tail light or for speeding or something, they can't really go in and search through things. Is that correct?
Unless they have reasonable suspicion of something else illegal that they've seen in plain view. That's one of the exceptions, to the warrant requirement for searches and seizures. So that's why I always say, if you're going to travel with firearms, have them locked up, hard cases, something inconspicuous, generally in a trunk or bigger case.
But with that too, John, excuse me for just jumping in, if the police officer was looking for somebody in a white Ford F-150 that just robbed a gun store, and they pulled him over, and he happened to have his hard cases locked, but yet the police officer was looking for a white Ford F-150, which is what Joe drives, would he then have probable cause to make him open his cases?
He might have probable cause to search the car. Don't ever assist in your own investigation. That also goes along with the right to remain silent. If there are locks on that case and that officer wants to look inside, okay, well, he can go get a search warrant and then they can cut the locks. You're not going to do it for him.
Gotcha.
And you're not being a bad person by that. You're exercising your right. Mm-hmm. Now, if it is a situation like this where, misunderstanding, read the license plate wrong, similar matching car, well, that's all going to help you. If you didn't help, you didn't admit that there were guns in the car, you didn't help them by consenting to any type of search, well, at that point, you're going to have a lawyer involved, and we're going to argue against, unlawful detentions, unlawful searches and seizures. And now you have a defense. The person that doesn't have a defense is the one that gets pulled over and is like, oh, hi, officer, yeah, there are guns in the back here, and they're not locked up. And you really run into trouble when these types of searches happen, and then something's not compliant, or you're not transporting your guns properly in accordance with the law. And then, you get extra charges thrown on you for something that should never even have happened. And you get a lot of that when someone, instead of throwing their gun case in the trunk and locking it up, they throw it in their back seat, thinking that, it's in the case and, it should be fine. Well, better to put it in the trunk.
And even if they do, a police officer, let's say they don't truly have probable cause, but they decide to search your vehicle anyway, don't stand in their way. Don't
wrestle them to the ground.
Yeah, you tell me. But, I mean, it's not like you can't really argue much. You can't start getting mouthy. You certainly can't touch the cop. If they do something illegal, you're just going to have to get that. You're going to have to. Yeah,
you got to grin and bear it. Yeah, obviously be civil. Don't fight it. Exercise your rights. Be explicit. I don't consent to any search and seizures. You got to get a warrant and make them get a warrant and do all that. And if something they did was wrong, at that point, your lawyer can then argue that.
Should you film them? Should you pull out your phone and start filming them if you see?
It is perfectly legal to film an officer. I always say, though, if you're in a situation, reaching into your pocket really fast is never a really good thing. So if you're going to do it, make your intentions known.
Yeah, I would say, excuse me, officer, before you go any farther, I'm going to start videotaping you.
Yeah, and that's perfectly acceptable.
He may not like it, but it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, and so, again, all of this is just the big theme is you don't want to assist in your own investigation. You don't want to assist in providing your own evidence against yourself. And it's not a bad thing. You're not a criminal when you do so. And you can do it in a very polite, cooperative way. It's just, this is how the world is. Some officers won't enforce little infractions or even, the non-compliant firearm. There's obviously stories out there, and I'm sure we've all heard them. I've definitely heard them, where someone gets lucky and they don't get, charges put on them or citations or even arrested for things that they should have. Now, more often than not, you do get the citation, you do get arrested, and they do confiscate, your guns or your other property if something is wrong, because remember, it's law enforcement's, their job is if they see something that they believe has violated the law, they're going to arrest for it. It's now the DA, the city attorney, and the defense attorney to figure out whether or not that was good to go and whether or not a real crime happened. It's not their job to determine that.
Right. Boy, I tell you what, it's always great having you on, John. Thank you very much. You can call him at 760-642-7150 or go to DillonLawGP.com for straight, honest answers. John, thanks a million. Take care.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.